is Doozy's superpower?
Geez, how long you got?
What do the boys get around at footy?
The seltzers, they're probably our most sessionable. You can drink a lot of them, so the boys love that. Our days off would be getting as many cases of Doozy as we could and just cold calling and door knocking on independent bottle shops around Sydney and pubs, and a lot of the time getting told to piss off.
I think the other one is the Swans. They've been so supportive, and their attitude to the young athletes in their business is to give them opportunity well beyond football.
Hero or sidekick?
Welcome to the Sidekick podcast, where we uncover the hidden superpowers that drive some of the biggest and fastest growing companies and successful names in the business world. I'm Bryce, and I'm joined by my regular co-host Ren, and we are your trusty sidekicks.
Today, we're very excited to be kicking off this series with one of Australia's most loved players in the AFL, Will Hayward, and his co-founder, Digby Richards. Will, Digby, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you very much for having us.
So today, we're not chatting to them just about football, and big fans here, but we are going under the hood on the success and the story of their beverage company, Doozy Drinks.
Now, for people watching, we're fully branded and drinking from the Kool-Aid, literally.
What have you got?
I've got vodka, iced tea, and lemonade, half and half. Nice. Very good, I must say.
Yeah, I agree.
You've got the same.
Yeah, I've got the same. What do the boys get around at footy?
The seltzers, they're probably our most sessionable, I think. You can drink a lot of them, so the boys love that. My personal favourite's our new baby, the peach half and half, which you guys are getting stuck into now.
That's good.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not here just to compliment you.
But we're enjoying it.
We're here, and this whole podcast is about unpacking the stories and understanding, I guess, the superpowers of some really successful businesses in Australia and around the world.
Yep.
But before we get into what makes Doozy great, we want to hear the story of Doozy. And I think, Will, it really starts with you. As we mentioned, you're an AFL player, and you co-founded this with Ollie and Isaac, other AFL players. So let's start there. Let's start with your journey to become a professional athlete, and then we'll get onto the business side afterwards. But take us back to how it all began. Funnily
enough, AFL wasn't always on the radar for me. It was always a dream. Don't get me wrong, but never sort of seemed like something that was achievable. I was a late grower. I didn't play in any of I'm from South Australia originally, so I didn't play in any of the rep teams until my draft year. So it all happened really sort of quickly for me. Just from going to playing school footy to getting picked in the SA team for the first time in my draft year to meeting with a lot of AFL clubs. It was all really fast paced and exciting at the same time. And then luckily enough to get picked up by the Swans in 2016. So moved up. You pretty much finished school and they ship you away. So said goodbye to beautiful Adelaide and came to Sydney, and everything from there has been sort of really exciting for me. It's been such a successful time at the club ever since I've been here, and I've made lifelong friends already, and including Ollie and Isaac, who are founders of Doozy themselves too.
Now, we should timestamp this conversation. We're recording before you play the prelim. So when you say it's been such a successful time at the club, we're hoping it's a very successful time.
Everyone touch wood.
When people are listening and watching, they'll know. So
that's why I'm on the waters.
That's it. Yeah, proof on camera. Yeah. So, we see a lot of game day and just what's through the media, but take us through like what your average day or week looks like when you're in the thick of it and, I guess preparing, getting ready for it all.
It's an awesome lifestyle we live, but it is really busy. Our main session will be at the club, 7 a.m. till 3 or 4. Your day off, if you've got niggles and stuff like that, you're sort of expected to go in and get some treatment and look after that. Training probably takes up the least amount of our day, to be honest. It's all about obviously recovering from training and then opposition analysis, how we're going to play, what's our plan for this week and things like that. So as an 18-year-old, it takes a while to sort of get used to that.
Yeah.
So it's a high pressure job. It's intense. It takes up a lot of time, and you just decided you weren't busy enough. So I might try my hand at something business related on the side. Tell us where Doozy starts to factor in on this story.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So it was in COVID. We were on a golf course in Perth, and we weren't allowed to leave or do anything. And it's actually funny. We were playing a game with if you had to start a business tomorrow, what would it be? And that was with a lot of
Classic
people.
golf.
And yeah. And so there was a lot of good ideas, a lot of absolutely shocking ones. And Ollie and I actually we both agreed we saw what the seltzer market was doing in the US, and we said like after that chat, like how do we do that? Let's do it. And it was literally like that. And then, a few phone calls made, and, where do we start? We sort of didn't know. We were still young and, just sort of oblivious, I suppose. And then, we got the ball rolling. We met Digby, and, he did his magic and, did all the branding. You were saying how nice the cans are looking before, so that's all Dig's work. But, yeah, fast forward, I think, a few years, and because once having an idea is one thing, making it happen, there's a lot of work behind the scenes. So we were spending lots of time with Diggs in his office before, we even saw a can. And yeah, I think once we got it out there, it was all guns blazing. Ollie and I were the sales team. We'd our days off would be getting as many cases of Doozy as we could into the boot of both of our cars and just going cold calling and door knocking on little independent bottle shops around Sydney and pubs, and a lot of the time getting told to piss off. So there's a lot of rejection along the way for sure. And when we started it, you don't imagine that. No, you just imagine it being this massive success. Of course, looking back, you wouldn't change it one bit, the rejection, because it just teaches you a lot about life's not easy. This isn't easy. You build a bit of thick skin, and then you don't take it personally when someone says no, and you just, all right, how can we, what do you want? How can we, turn it into a yes is the next thing. So
now I think we've got to say, I reckon Bryce is a bit jealous here today because you weren't the only people that looked to America and said this seltzer thing is taking off. Bryce didn't start his own seltzer brand, but he did reach out to White Claw very early days. He emailed them and asked if he could be their exclusive Australian distributor. Got turned down, and that was the end of his story. So
got turned down because they said international expansion is not part of our business plan. 6 months later, they're like, deal with Dan Murphy's.
There you go.
So Dan Murphy's Bryce. I could see
it. So full credit for taking a step further than Bryce.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank
you. Before we get into growing it and finding distributors, let's start like really early days. You guys have an idea. You meet Digby. The idea of having a seltzer sounds great, but like trying to figure out, all right, well, how do we actually make a seltzer? How do we make it taste good? There are other seltzers coming to market in Australia. How do we compete? How do we differentiate? Talk us through the process of going from idea to like first can.
When we first had the idea, there was, I think, one seltzer in Australia that's probably still around today, which is Good Tides. They were sort of first on the market. It's the only one we could see. So us being naive at the time, we were like, sweet, we'll make our seltzer and we'll be second. Obviously, there's 100 other people thinking what we're thinking, which we didn't know at the time. And so for us, I think, and the importance of Digby's role and what he does was all around like the branding and the story of what Doozy is and how can that stand out. I think it's held us in good stead since. I don't know if you want to touch on any of that, Diggs.
We looked at the whole market, and we could see that, that really seltzers were probably going to come and go at some point. And we'd already heard that in America they were coming off a little bit. So when we actually looked at some of the market data from there, and then we went, okay, this whole area is actually called ready to drink. So anything in a can that's not a beer is called ready to drink or premix. And that area is growing at a rapid rate. So when you go into a Dan Murphy's or a BWS, that area gets bigger and bigger every week. So when you look at the data of that, that's the highest growth category in all of alcohol is ready to drink. So we went, well, seltzer's only a little portion of ready to drink. So why don't we become a brand that represents all of ready to drink and become an innovation platform with one attitude, it's one brand, but it has many doorways into largely promiscuous flavours that are loved by young adults. So whether they're into gin or vodka or cocktails or seltzers or whatever it might be, ginger beer, you're seeing derivatives of stuff in the beer category as well. So one brand, one attitude, many doorways. So that's the way we set it up. So that's why you see in front of you got a vodka soda, you got a vodka iced tea, we've got seltzers. we're looking at a whole range of other things. But what's really important with that is also to make sure that we just don't become this brand that just chases fads. We've got to build a brand of franchise where, we're known for building some core equity in the brand, but we can always be innovative. So that's really important. That's probably the watch out with an innovation platform. You just don't chase fads. You tend to try and chase recurring trends that happen year after year. So that was really important. The other piece that was really important to us was when you build a business, you got to make sure there's no weaknesses in the business plan. Otherwise, you're going to limit success or your chance of success. Then you need a little bit of luck on top. So when we looked at it, we went, right, let's get the brand right. So we did a whole process and out popped Doozy at the end because it's fun.
It's a good
has
name.
personality.
Yeah.
It's got attitude already. And it's known. It's a known quantity to some degree versus, say, White Claw, which doesn't make sense. All due respect to White Claw.
Shit on anyone you want.
Yeah. And just dump it in the market and see what happens. But then there's also, the actual formulas. So Hill helps us create the actual, great tasting products, the supply chain of producing it and making sure it's done, the cans. Then you've got to have the finance and the capital. And then you need the distribution deals. So we're lucky where Endeavour were fantastic. So that's Dan's and BWS. But the Coles Liquor Group's been great. Metcash have been great. And a lot of independent stores have been great. The Clovelly Hotel has been one of our biggest, champions of the brand from the beginning. So we're just starting to build, and now we're in most Dan stores across the nation and 300 or 400 BWS stores, a lot of Coles stores in New South Wales. But we want to keep growing that, particularly through the independents as well. It's very important.
Now, I know you can't tell us about your range that's in the pipeline, but something I noticed while I was in Europe last year that was quite big was the Limoncello Spritz. Now, I don't know.
Big fan of that.
Yes, thank you. Nice.
Great drink.
I've only seen one brand in Australia do it in full bottle form. So
And that's doing very well.
very well, apparently. Yeah, millions of bottles or million bottles. But
Well, we're not going down limoncello route. So I think the key, what you're trying to do with it is, so what we're seeing in the category, we're seeing a bit of premiumization. So that means probably a little higher alcohol, but a bit more expensive. You're seeing also at the other end low calorie and potentially not no alcohol, but low alcohol. So 2-3%. You're seeing low cal. You're seeing also full flavour. So people that don't really care about calories, so that's hard rated or hard solo, and to some degree vodka, iced tea, our Doozy half and half. We call it the Tim Tam of alcohol. Like if you're going to indulge, just indulge. People don't like to be told what to drink. So the key is to have a bit of range with that. We play in the big flavour space. We don't go niche. So it's raspberries, it's lemons, it's limes, it's watermelons. We don't want to go too niche because we want to be a brand for everyone. We don't want to be up ourselves. It's very important to it being an egalitarian brand. So haven't answered your question.
there wasn't a question.
I just really want some
I just
limoncello.
want
Really
Limoncello Spritz.
Well, that could be your next podcast, maybe.
This whole podcast is a search to find the alcohol company
Man
that
up us doing it.
So it sounds like you're speaking now, and you've got like a fully formed brand identity, and the idea of an innovation platform, and the goal to be playing in a lot of different sort of subcategories in the ready to drink space. I'm sure that all wasn't so fully formed when you started the business.
Hell no.
How much of the goals and I guess the ambition as well changed over the journey of Doozy?
I think, as I was touching on before, when Ollie and I were door knocking, our goals were to get into, 5 venues this week. But I think naturally, as you grow and build a little bit of momentum, I suppose your goals naturally change. So, I think, like personally, for me to be able to say, if my mate says, "Where can I get a Doozy?" and I say, "Go to Dan Murphy's," that's always that was a really special milestone, I think, for me and probably us.
Can you take us into one of those early door knockings when you're knocking on the door of an independent? What was that conversation like? Like, hey, I'm Will. If you like AFL, you might know who I am. I'm not here about that. Here's an alcohol brand I'm starting.
Yeah, so we actually really struggled with that. Ollie and I at the start is saying, you know, we play for the Swans. You know, we really wanted to get a balance between this is a footballer's drink, and this is just a drink that you know, coincidentally footballers started as well. So yeah, sometimes we weren't having much luck, and my brother, who is also a co-founder, so mate, you just got to bloody do it. I know it's going to be hard, but just say I'm Will, I'm from Doozy, and I play for the Sydney Swans. And it's like, even saying it now, I'm just like, oh, you know. But that, yeah, it definitely did help, because you get the odd bottle shop owner that's a big fan of the club, and you can leverage that. And you know, sometimes our Friday night would be a 2-hour tasting session at a bottle shop where we're just trying to get people to taste our product.
I think, you know, as part of this series, we're trying to draw out what makes companies great and what gives them an advantage. And I think one thing that I'm hearing quite early on, it's like, you know, you and Ollie might have had the original idea, but building that team of co-founders that, you know, have like brand and design experience, and then, you know, your brother who's got more like consumer packaged goods experience, like having the right team in place seems like it was pretty critical.
Yeah, I think the other one is the Swans, actually, as well. So we've just... 2 or 3 months ago, have a 3-year agreement with them as an official partner. So they've been really supportive even in the early days, you know, from Tom Harley to Andrew Brittam, more for advice. And now we've formalised that. And that allows us to, you know, validate that relationship beyond just, you know, Will, Ollie and Isaac. But they've been so supportive, and their attitude to the young athletes in their business is to show them a life or give them opportunity well beyond football. That becomes then sort of sets them up as a destination club, because, you know, kids or even parents of kids in draft years are probably looking at that as a bigger, where they're going to go beyond football, and what's the club that's going to nurture that or support that. So I think Doozy's a poster child to that.
Is it in the bars at the SCG?
It's not in the SCG.
I think Maryvale control that quite tightly.
Yeah. You said that, Alec.
We can cut that out.
It's in the training facility though, so some friends and family go back
pre-game.
Yeah, how much are you guys drinking at training?
No, certainly not for the players, but staff and family and friends post-game go back there and have a couple of drinks. So. Yeah, that's another, you know, as we naturally grew, like another goal that we were talking about before, to be in partnerships with the Swans is awesome. Like that's, if you told me that 4 or 5 years ago, I would have said no way.
Yeah, I think my observation with the boys as well, to answer that question, was yes, the selling, the boys going out knocking on door and the rejection and hearing the stories literally every couple of days when we're on sales calls, which were hilarious. You know,
very funny.
So out of 100 door knocks, they might have got 20 sales and 80 rejections, you know. So, you know, character building stuff.
Yeah.
For boys, I mean, respectfully, they've probably had their way most of their life because they've been gifted athletes, and I can say that. Whereas to get that rejection, you know, really, I think, matures you very quickly outside of the bubble of footy. So that's an observation. I think Isaac coming as an early investor has been terrific as well, and he really complements Ollie and Will. And obviously they're tight on the footy field, but my observation is they've learned off each other how to build their profile, how to become sort of personal brands that they can leverage even further beyond even just Doozy. So they've all matured magnificently, and Isaac, being maybe just a couple of years older, has had a bit more probably national profile. So that's been a really good... It's not the
only reason why he's got a bit more national profile.
Yeah. He's pretty handy on the field too, repeatedly. But he's also, I think, really helped the guys in that regards as well. So they've really worked well, those three boys. Yeah.
Speaking of, like, so Bryce and I were really good mates before we started Equity Mates, but I've learnt so much about Bryce and learnt so much about myself, and I guess, and like how different we are in terms of how we work individually and together. Bryce, a lot more detail-oriented, a lot more strategic than I am. And, you know, it's been a really good relationship builder because we've learnt so much about each other. How has starting this business changed your relationship and built your relationship with the other boys?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it takes a while to, a few years of working with them to probably realise. But I think we've balanced it really well. You know, when we're in the club, we're teammates and best mates, and you know, if we clock onto a Zoom or a meeting with the team, it's business, and I'm probably a bit more. I don't know, how do I say this?
Just say it.
I'd probably like to probably a bit more. Let's get it done right, but also as efficient as possible, so we can hit as many stores as we can. Whereas Ollie's like, let's do it together.
Teamwork.
And, teamwork. You know, he's in a good way. Like I think he works better in a team, and he's like super passionate about it too. Like just like loves to meet new people. Our biggest and most loyal customer, the Clovelly Hotel, that's his relationship that he built with the manager there, and he's really good with people.
Nice.
So, Will, when you think about superpower and you know, all of the elements that go into a business, for someone sitting there thinking, you know, I want to start the next Doozy or whatever, what are some of like the hard skills that you think are like critical to like entrepreneurship?
Well, I think for me, like we just threw ourselves in the deep end. We learned a lot on the go, so quickly we realised you've got to have people that are really good at their job already. So Ollie and I had an idea, and like we're not going to be able to do much without some help. Let's find some of the best creative agencies in Sydney. We got linked up with Diggs. We're going to need someone to help with operations. We've got full-time jobs, so we're going to need to get a good team on board and do it that way. And if you need to sell a bit of equity or whatever it is to get someone that's going to grow your company, it's going to have to do it. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I guess, Digby, same question to you. You know, not just with Doozy, but you've worked with a number of brands in your professional life. Not that Doozy isn't your professional life, but
It's the best one.
but
Doesn't talk back.
But like, what do you see both in this business and in other businesses you work with that like really separate good companies from great companies?
I think leadership. So CEOs or chair people who really understand what their brand's about and what it's not about to some degree. Don't be all things to all people. So that's one area. So when we were involved in the launch of Stan, the streaming service. So Mike Sneesby, who I know has just left Nine, but Mike was our original client right from the get-go. And David Gingell was involved, and we were literally rolling up the sleeves with them 6 months out from launch, and it was phenomenal because they had a vision. They were a challenger brand, so they wanted to disrupt Foxtel. They wanted to democratise content for $10 a month, and it was a really audacious, and being an Australian-only firm to do that, taking on the juggernauts of Netflix as well, which is an easy model of just piping it around the world. They had to create content, access content, and just do that in a small jurisdiction called Australia. So that belief to take on a challenge like that and do it with audacity and with a great brand in Stan, which is distinctive, and then we launched with Rebel Wilson, did all that. It was a great probably learning for us where we can take a challenger brand like Doozy and you can really create a multiplier effect on top of, maybe your resources at the time. They didn't have a huge budget. We definitely didn't have a huge budget, so we had to be distinctive. We had to stand out. We had to create a groundswell through social. We couldn't sort of pay our way to success. It's just been distinctive over different a lot of the times. It's very difficult to have something different. If you think about what's in this can, it's not a lot. We think it's great, but it's not a discerning product at this level. So brand, personality, not taking yourself too seriously, celebrating the imperfectness of mateship versus the perfect avatar world of social media, that's where Doozy plays. And that's its reason for being.
I think about that a lot with alcohol. So we're both from retail backgrounds. Alex was at Coles, I was at Woolworths.
Oh, cool.
So saw how ruthless it can be for, the buyers of alcohol. All of a sudden one day are like, Doozy's no good. Your distribution channel's cut. And there goes your business, essentially, if you've solely relied on it. So then the importance of brand and all these other sort of things come into it. And as you said, like if you're putting seltzer next to seltzer next to seltzer, fundamentally it's hard lemonade and next to each other. And so how do you ensure that you can build a sustainable brand? You think about the Penfolds of the alcohol world that just have been in existence for 100 years. It's pretty incredible.
And that's a discerning product, as in terms of taste as well. Whereas this is highly promiscuous. So, you do need those anchor points. And you need capital. So we were very lucky. We valued the company at an early stage and brought on some terrific investors who have got behind us and have been incredibly supportive. And they're not agitating. We've sort of hand-selected these investors, and they've actually provided capital and support and skill just to see this brand, do well and be enduring, because there will be ups and downs with this. We might get delisted by Endeavour at some point, and you've got to be ready for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you just hope it's not a strategy, we got to be ready for that. So what are we doing? How are we spreading our risk as well?
Yeah.
And you learn that a bit with this. Yeah.
It's such a tough market in Australia because it's so consolidated.
I hope we don't get delisted.
Yeah. Well,
Go to Dan's.
you keep coming on the podcast, keep building the brand. You mentioned raising capital there, and I think that's a really common question we get from people that want to start businesses, because it's so hard to even know where to begin, let alone to actually see the process end to end. So what was that like for you guys? Like, I'm sure you weren't the only challenger alcohol brand pitching investors at the time. So in the spirit of being distinctive, not different, like, how did you get that money? Yeah.
Well, firstly, we got our story right. You've got to get your narrative right. So, and that narrative is not just puffery. It's sort of, what's your strategy and how is this going to grow? Every investor wants to know about growth, and you've got to make sure that's got some real, robustness to it. So one is, you look at the category, it's growing like this, and then you go, right, well, here's our way to penetrate that category and get market share. So that has to be watertight. And you see a lot of these investor documents, and they're not. That's the first thing. The second thing would be it's who you go to. So we handpicked the people we went to. We didn't go to like a group. We didn't get any. There was no advisor.
No middleman in there. Yeah.
We just went to people that we knew that were prepared to back us.
Yeah, nice.
We had also, you project value when you're a startup. You don't really cross-section value. You don't actually look at value now. Oh, right, we've got all this revenue coming in.
Yeah.
It's more on future orders, future deals. So you are projecting value. So there has to be a bit of trust in the story and trust in the strategy. And you'll lose that trust pretty quickly if every quarter you're not hitting your mark. So the important piece there is get your story right, your narrative right, handpick the investors, try and avoid too many, up the valuation as much as you can within reason, and get people to be serious about it. And try and avoid just mums and dads investors as best you can. I mean, at the beginning, no reason why you can't have them in there, but if they're just sort of, not committed, then they're not really part of the, kind of the commitment to the brand and the commitment to what we're trying to do. Because ultimately you're going to have to go cap in hand again at some point. The key is to try and not do more than 2 or 3 capital raises. Because you're always going to the well for capital, and surely you should be creating your own earnings at that point. Have we got all that perfect? Probably not. But look, we've got a great growth strategy, evaluation, which I won't say, but is it's conservative, it's achievable, based on our deals. But we need repeat purchase. We need consumers to just keep loving this brand. That's our ticket to success.
So go to doozydrinks.com.au.
On that note.
Exactly.
Speaking of success, before we just move to a couple of questions on personal finance for Will. Will, what does success look like for Doozy in 10 years? Where do you see this thing? Have you sold it? You're living on the yacht, or is this a brand that you're still involved with? What do you think about Doozy in 10 years' time?
I mean, 10 years' time, living on a yacht just sounds awesome.
I'll be next to you, mate.
Yeah. I think, after playing footy, I'd still like to be involved with it. So, hopefully that's still some time away. But I just think, as Dig said, it's a brand that we still work with, but financially it runs itself. We don't need to sort of doing more capital raises and things like that. It's a brand that's growing. We have more SKUs. Who knows what the market's doing in 5-10 years too? It could we could be sitting here having a God knows what.
A limoncello.
Yeah, limoncello. Maybe in 10 years that's what we'll be doing. But raising capital, like sitting in some of those meetings.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was, the first time I was doing it, I was going, what's going on here? But since then, there's been some people that I've brought on that I've met through my network that are now investors in Doozy. So from early conversations with some of our original investors to learn from those chats to be able to take it to anywhere, whether it's a Swans event, a fundraising event or something like that, to tell people the story of Doozy and get them interested in it. It's been awesome.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. I love it. You guys should be super proud of what you guys have built. It's cool and it tastes good and it's impressive.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, as we turn towards the end of this episode, one thing that we want to do throughout this podcast is, we're getting high performers on from different fields and different industries. And we always want to close with, I guess, a little turn towards personal finance. We want to hear how high performers think about their personal finance. Obviously, within reason. We're not going to ask you, what's in your bank account. Yeah. I'm sure there's plenty of footy journos that want you to answer that question, but we won't ask it. So I guess, Will, as an AFL player and a co-founder of this business, Digby is the CEO of your own company. Like, you guys have quite different perspectives, I guess, probably on life and money and business. So we'll start with you, Will, and then Digby. So I guess, how do you think about personal finance, investing for the future, and I guess especially when footy careers can be quite short relative to our lives? Like, how do you think about setting yourself up for the future?
It's a good question. I think when you're young and you earn more money than probably your friends that are still at uni, you've got a bit of an advantage at that stage. But then again, your career is not going to last forever. Like probably what they're studying for. So being smart with that, I got into property and pretty early. So I did that, and then this was my other baby. So we started this with our own money, and obviously as we needed to grow, got some investors on board. But since then, I met actually the owner of Superhero, who's been awesome. Just learning off someone like him, he's been super interesting guy to talk to. So I've done a little bit of investing in that with a few shares, and then just recently got a place in Coogee, a little apartment. So most of my finance is in property, but I really like to learn off guys like yourselves and John and Wayne, who are experts in their field too.
Any stock tips?
I was actually just riding Drone Shield. I've been riding the highs and lows of Drone Shield. Yeah. Just who knows what
a roller coaster.
What a roller coaster. But I got into Zip Pay quite early, which I much prefer looking at that compared to Drone Shield at the moment. But things like that, and then just the NASDAQ as well, just some safer ones.
Yeah, nice. Love that. Digby, how about you? How do you think about personal finance?
Very traditional, but old school. Real estate. Richards Rose, a company I'm have been the CEO of, but co-founder with a guy called Adam Rose. I also, Doozy. We've got significant equity in Doozy, so we want that to return something one day, which would be good. Also, we have some equity in a few other things as well. So we're probably, from a Richards Rose point of view, we've dabbled in more equity cash deals than pure just cash fee deals, where we've got skin in the game. So you're sort of backing something to multiply at a greater rate than a consultancy fee. So that's where I suppose that entrepreneurial streak comes. And I think a lot of this came out of COVID, to be honest. Like Doozy came out of COVID. We're involved with White Bay Beer, which is also a Sydney Swan sponsor, have equity in that
Great
business.
Beer.
So that's that's a COVID baby as well. And I'm involved in a couple of other companies which are all to some degree COVID challenge and disruptor brands. And and have small equity positions in those.
So what I'm hearing is if anyone is listening and they have an idea, they should hit you up because you'll do a deal with them for equity.
Well, yes, long as I believe in it,
Nice,
which is the main
nice.
thing. Yeah. So, and that belief is, it's got to be, it's got to be well thought through. You can't fluke your way to success.
No.
Yeah.
All right. Well, one final question to close, which we'll be asking everyone who comes on the show. In relation to Doozy, or maybe even you personally, Will, when it comes to your involvement in Doozy, what is the superpower? What is Doozy's superpower?
Doozy's superpower. Geez, how long you got?
In 30 seconds or less.
It's a podcast. We can do it,
I think our superpower, I think we've got a few, but I'll say two. The hustle that we did at the start.
Yep.
The team was myself, Ollie, Digby, and Harry. That's it. And that taught us a lot of resilience and hard work, and that makes, seeing it in Dan Murphy's so crazy for us because, like the rejection we got. So I think that the hustle that we found at the start, and then the people that we have now, that's our superpower. As Dig said, we've got investors that aren't breathing down our necks. They're offering help. How can they support us? And our actual, Doozy team who work day to day, they're just absolute hustlers. They work so hard. The special shout out to Alice in the ops. She's had some jobs that you just wouldn't wish upon your worst enemy and just gets it done. So it's the people behind the brand that I think is our superpower.
Yeah, no, it's really good point. We've got about 7 or 8 full-time people now. They're all being fantastic. I think, though, when you pare it all back, the two things that make us, give us that edge, the superpower, as you say, would be the Swans connection through the boys. So Will, Isaac, Ollie, and we're getting better at leveraging that and being smarter with it. And the other one would be, which is slightly, pumping up both our tires, is kind of having a brand agency as part of the, versus having to hire that brand agency in. So the team at Richards Rose is pretty much a full-time little unit, like the marketing unit that does all the socials, the content, literally every day. So if we had to hire that in, if we had to hire the talent in, we wouldn't have a P&L that would be affordable. So they're leverage points, and they're probably our superpowers. That give us, I think, an edge over probably other businesses in this category.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, guys. I guess if anyone listening wants to check out the range of Doozy, as you've said, sounds like it's in all major retailers.
Yep.
Plus down at the Coogee Hotel.
Well,
If you're
the Clovelly.
Clovelly.
Clovelly Hotel.
Clovelly.
Not in Coogee Bay, yeah?
if you're in Coogee, if you go in and ask for it at Coogee Bay, just keep
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 asking.
Keep asking.
Yeah,
Keep
is that-
asking.
go to your local, even if it's an independent. If they don't have it, tell them to get it.
Well, if you want to give your number on the podcast, people can message you direct.
Yeah. No, that's great.
But thank you so much, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Great.
Thank you very much
Bryce.
for having
Thanks,
us.
Alex.
Thanks, guys.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
If you're interested to learn more about how to grow your wealth like a superhero, head to superhero.com.au/registration, and you can subscribe to Sidekick wherever you are listening so you don't miss the next episode. Well, that's it from us. Your trusty sidekicks will be uncovering more superpowers next episode.